Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back under the video from Totally Mark, and today we're checking out ranking every Dragon Ball arc tier list. I love me some tier lists, you guys know I love tier lists. I think this is going to be covering Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super. I don't know about Dragon Ball GT. It'd be very funny because you could just start off with that and just put that right at the bottom. But anyway, let's just get straight into this, shall we? This is the ranking every Dragon Ball arc tier list from Totally Not Mark.
Today we're doing a tier list for every Dragon Ball arc.
Hey.
Yes, every arc, including Super, but not GT.
Nah, there we go. Yes, that.
Don't you tell me that it wasn't meant to be. Call it quits, call it destiny.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, I'll do GT. Let's start from where it all began.
Okay.
Search for the Dragon Balls, otherwise known as the Emperor Peel-Off arc. This is a weird one to
So
start
I'm not
this
very
video
well
off.
versed in Dragon
It is
Ball,
the starting point of
so
the franchise,
I'll just
and
have
it
to
does feel like Dragon Ball, but
take his
this
word
is
for it.
clearly a growing period for the franchise, episodic in nature with a much stronger focus
I mean, it's
on
the
adventure
start,
over
isn't it?
combat.
So,
Despite
yeah.
combat being present, the comedic nature of this short adventure feels distinctly different to everything
Else, yeah.
afterwards. With that said, it plays host to some of the most oft flashback to moments in the series, like Roshi and Bulma's introductions, Goku versus Yamcha, and, of course, Goku's very first Kamehameha. There's humor, some weird creative choices that are extra spicy looking back at them today,
yeah,
but
I've seen some
overall,
clips for
it still
that.
retains a lot of the charm that made it famous. It's not my favorite arc by any means, but it does deliver some
So
nice
what are you gonna
twists
rank it,
with the
Mark?
discovery of Goku's great ape power, connecting it back to his grandpa Gohan's death alluded to at the very beginning. All in all, a decent start to the series. I'll give this one a B.
Cool.
Next up, the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai. Now we're talking.
I was gonna say, this is like pretty
unironically
freaking
one of
sick
my
from what I've
favorite
seen, like.
arcs of all time. And I cannot believe more people don't talk about it.
Hmm.
A while back, I decided to review the original series, and
Which was great. It was nice to see his review of that.
And execution of what was, at the time, a big change in tone and direction for the series into the realms of battle manga. Looking back now from the present day, with the likes of gods and intergalactic brawls,
Yeah.
and destroyed galaxies being the order of the day, this feels much more quaint and measured in comparison. And
Okay.
to be honest, I love that about this. While it's much more modest and simple, these aspects of the story are absolutely
all the milk training and that, and,
focusing on and effectively delivering upon the themes and fostering of the next generation and pushing your limits perhaps more effectively than any
God.
other arc that would come later. The battle between Roshi and Goku is phenomenal, and to this day, it's one of the arcs I turn to revisit whenever I'm hankering for some good paneling, classic Dragon Ball action, and some good
The action does seem
old-fashioned
absolutely sick. It's not just beam
This is
struggles
an
and people
easy
flying around everywhere. Yes, go ahead.
Next up is the Red Ribbon Army. Here's where we start running into our first problem in this video.
Okay.
What some people consider an arc, others don't. And with regards to the Red Ribbon Army arc, you can further subdivide it into pieces or look at it as a whole. I'm doing the latter because screw doing it the other way.
Yeah.
This division brought up a great point in the emotional through line of this arc, being that of Goku using the Dragon Balls to bring back Appa's dad. So, naturally, the end point of this arc for me is with the Uranai Baba tournament, where both of these through lines get satisfied, which honestly raises this arc in my estimation. I personally loved that tournament, particularly through its ending with Goku getting to reunite with his grandpa Gohan.
That's nice. Yeah, I'm remembering the review talking about this.
It's touching, and it's still to this day one of the only two moments in this entire series that's made me tear up.
Oh wow, okay, cool.
I know this arc might feel boring to some, and on the flip side, might be some others' favorites. But for me, it lands somewhere in A tier. There's a lot of adventure and fun in this arc with some
I reckon
crazy characters like
the original Dragon Ball's going to rank higher than at least Super's arcs, and GT's definitely.
Next up, the 22nd Tenkaichi
Is he going to do GT first before Super? I'm sure we'll find out.
Budokai, while it might be the weakest of the three tournaments in early Dragon Ball, it's still an early Dragon Ball tournament arc, and thus is an easy A-tier contender.
Damn.
The fundamentals
Tournament
are all there
arcs
for a great
for the
story
win.
concerning manipulation, staying true to yourself, and of course, my soft spot fostering the next generation. The three main
Train 'em
tournament arcs
up.
in early Dragon Ball, when viewed through the lens of Master Roshi, tell the story of a grizzled vet looking on, hoping, praying, and doing everything in his power to ensure that long after he's gone,
People will stay to fight.
someone better than he to look after the Earth. And it's in this tournament we really get to experience that as, for the very first time for us, Roshi loses, opting to leap out of bounds in his match against Tenshinhan for his own good, proving to Tenshinhan in that moment that winning isn't what's important to Roshi, but everything else that comes afterwards. Furthermore, the matchups in this tournament are awesome too, with the likes of Roshi versus Tenshinhan, of course, Goku versus Krillin, and naturally, the final matchup, Goku versus Tenshinhan, with Tenshinhan's very soul on the line, and with there existing the possibility that this could be the very first time Goku could win a tournament. It's an edge of your seat affair, and I just loved it. I'm sort of on the fence with this one. Should I put it in S tier, or should I leave it with A? The first tournament I still feel is a little better, I think, but only by a fraction. Still, it's enough to push this to A tier, I think.
Nice.
King Piccolo arc.
Yo.
The King Piccolo arc, on the other hand, is an arc that I don't think I share a lot in common with the rest of the Dragon Ball fanbase, given I found it difficult to get past a few hiccups I saw the story to have. But let's talk about some of the good points first, because in reality, there's a lot to like here. And I do want to give this arc its fair due. Its ending ushers in, of course, an iconic battle between Goku and King Piccolo
that look.
himself, with a level of seriousness to it, the likes of which we had never seen before from Goku, which is appropriate as this is Goku in his teenage years, and the last time we'll see him as a child before becoming a fully fledged adult. And not to mention boasts one of the coolest defeat moments for a main villain. Furthermore, I love the connection at the end Goku receives to the heavens with God. And on top of that, yet again, upon rereading, I was blown away by how great Goku's first interaction with Yajirobe actually was, and I love how filled with anger Goku became
when Krillin dies
in the story's opening moments.
Whoa.
It's tragic and horrific to see, particularly off the back of what was a great and respectful contest between Goku and Tenshinhan in the finish during the last arc. But I do have some gripes with this arc, as I mentioned, so let's go.
Go on.
While it has elements that are great, to me it felt as though they were cobbled together by tenuous plot beats that existed solely to move the story along, despite them not actually making all that much narrative sense in the first place. The first defeat Goku receives soundly at the hands of King Piccolo is great, but King Piccolo only leaves the scene when he recognizes that Goku's heart has stopped.
Yeah, and then it starts again.
Once he leaves, Goku's heart coincidentally just turns back on. We'll call that contrivance number 1. Okay, that's contrivance
But Bardock's wish!
Contrivance number 2 comes by way of Goku being in the company of the only person who could carry him to safety, and not just that, manage also to climb Korin Tower. Goku was the first to climb the tower in God knows how long. That's what made that specific achievement so special. But now, because the plot demands it, Yajirobe can do it too?
Yeah,
that's
of course. Plot convenience.
Number 2. Okay, that's contrivance number 2.
Okay,
Contrivance number 3. Once up there, the lesson Goku received from Korin in that keep away game now is flipped on its head with no real message apart from, I guess he took a big risk by drinking the special water to make him stronger. Cool.
Yeah, but wasn't that like that there was nothing about the water? It wasn't really a thing, it just made him believe.
There's no story arc really to speak of that's meaningful outside of Roshi coming to realize that his time as the Earth's defender has come to an end. And he doesn't even really play a large enough role to carry the story this time around. It's a real shame. This arc has a lot to offer, and while I still think it leaves a lot to be desired, it's still the blueprint for villain-centered arcs that will be later perfected as the series soldiers into Dragon Ball Z. With that said, I just can't put it anywhere higher than a B tier person.
Fair.
But that's okay, because the next arc marks what I believe to be the beginning of the single best run in all of Dragon Ball. And that run begins at the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai. I think at this point it should go without saying that I am so
no one recognizes Goku. It's like,
what?
wait,
With the first acting as one of my favorites in the series, this, the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, might actually be my favorite arc of all time, alongside 2 others I'm sure many of you could guess. To me, this arc marks the beginning of my favorite stretch in Dragon Ball's long and winding story, and I think, for this arc, we gotta dust off that God tier once again, because man, this is a God tier level entrant, if ever I did see one. Almost every single fight in this tournament is an absolute banger.
Banger, go ahead.
Like
Banger.
Tenshinhan versus his former mentor Tao.
Tao has no chance to do.
Versus Goku fight.
That's cool.
Versus Piccolo, and Yamcha versus Shen, offering Yamcha perhaps his best moment in the original run, despite him still losing. And those are just the quarter-final matchups. It's got a rematch between Tien and Goku, and of course, we have Goku versus Piccolo in the finals. The likes of which I cannot believe there are still folks out there that have watched and loved Dragon Ball Z and still haven't seen this one.
Yeah, it's a good fight.
This is the part of early Dragon overall,
It's amazing.
it really started to feel like Z for me. And
Yeah,
this final
that's
fight
true.
specifically is better than so many of those great fights we get in Z.
'Cause it's so physical and
It's
ooh,
incredible.
just like
Offers so much in the way of choreography, so much so that later fights borrow from this very fight itself. I could talk about this arc honestly for the next half an hour, and I have done on my channel. So if you want to know my
Go
thoughts
check that
on
out.
every aspect of this arc in detail, you can go there. But for the sake of brevity, I will be placing this in a new category
S?
called God Tier.
God tier. Cool. Okay.
Now it's time to march onward to Dragon Ball Z, starting things off with
Oh,
the very first arc
mate.
of Z,
Yo.
entitled
The Saiyan arc.
Now,
Hell
oddly enough,
yes.
given that I'm a reviewer and love Dragon Ball, it might surprise many of you to know that I've reviewed every single part of Dragon Ball, including GT, except for the series' most popular section, Dragon Ball Z. And since I have every intention to one day review these arcs in detail, I will be sharing with you all my ratings for these arcs now. However, I will try to keep them brief. This
Okay.
is a tier list after all, and we have a lot more to get through after Z concludes. Alright,
The Saiyan arc's so
the
good.
Saiyan arc. This was the arc that literally started it all for me. Way back when I was a little kid,
Yep.
I got to see Goku vs. Vegeta, and
On
to this
TV,
day,
Cartoon
it is
Network.
still my favorite
Oh.
fight in all of the series, and maybe even all of anime. It's an arc that kicks off with a change that takes a story from the limitations of Earth to the broad expanse of the greater
Space.
universe. It kills Goku in its
Straight
opening
away,
chapters,
it's like,
and
what?
That's never happened before, and the journey to and training with
Snake
Tenkaichi
Way.
remains to this day one of my most treasured moments in the series. This arc is top to bottom brilliant, and I can't wait to one day explain in greater detail why this is my opinion. But for now, we're putting this in God tier.
Hell yes.
The Frieza arc.
Oh,
The Frieza arc is another incredible contender
God
for this
tier.
tier list, and one
God
that's catapulted my
tier.
imagination into the stratosphere.
yes.
I will say right now that I'm including the Namek portion of this tale in this arc too, meaning the cat and mouse games that made our first trip
So
outside
sick,
the
so cool.
confines
So
of
like,
Earth
they're gonna find him. Are they gonna not? They're gonna get the Dragon Balls. What's gonna happen with Vegeta?
It also has
They're
a
teaming
moment
up.
that legitimately scared me to my very core as a kid when Brian Drummond's Vegeta screamed in anger after he discovered Gohan stole his Dragon Ball.
Oh, mate. So sick.
Hearing that voice, that anger, my soul would leave my body. And furthermore, it
Oh.
elevated the intimidation that Vegeta represented in the story, which again was leveraged brilliantly from that point on through encounters with the Ginyu Force.
Oh
that
yeah, every time he fought the Ginyu
Goku's
Force, he got
arc
stronger. It was like,
never expected
yo.
from him. And then there's the Frieza fight,
Chasing
which
Jace through the
offered
corridor
Gohan a
always
number of
got me.
occasions to be badass, and of course Vegeta's death
Oh,
and Goku's
that was
ultimate
emotional.
fight with Frieza, which also provided for me my favorite Goku moment in the series, and it's not the Super Saiyan transformation.
Oh?
It's the Kaioken
Kaioken?
times 20. Acting as one last hopeless struggle to maybe touch the untouchable god Frieza had built himself up to be. The ending to this struggle is perfect, and I totally 100% plan on going and diving into this in greater detail another day. But for now, again,
Exciting.
this is
God tier.
another god tier.
Hell yes, it is.
Next up, the Garlic Jr. arc. Okay, look, I know this arc
Oh.
isn't canon, but I included it for funsies, okay? Sue me. Whenever the series would pop on my TV screen and the Frieza arc would end, I'd eagerly await the return of Goku in his little space
Yeah.
pod, only to, time and again, get faked out by this weird
This-
zombie vampire
yeah.
mini arc featuring Gohan, Krillin, and Piccolo.
I was very
Truth be told,
confused.
the concept behind this little story isn't all that bad and actually has a few scenes that I remember vividly, like the gang turning into weird vampire zombies.
Yeah, what was that about?
Water Mist and of course, Kami and Popo running in the depths of the Lookout. It adds a bit of color and fun to the world of the Lookout too,
Oh,
but to be
Krillin,
honest,
no.
that's where my compliments end. It's at the end of the day a needless detour with no consequence for the main plot and adds nothing of serious value. The action is lacking Toriyama's touch and overall was never
It's very
a genre I
low.
wanted to revisit in this series. This is our first C tier entry,
Right.
totally met in hindsight. And now we're on to what everyone's been
Oh.
waiting for, the Cell arc. Now we're back to cooking with gas. With the Cell arc comprising everything concerning Frieza's surprise return with Trunks' reveal,
Mate,
android
mate.
material, and of
Future
course,
Trunks
the
cutting
great
Frieza
man
up was
of
just
the
like,
hour,
what?
Cell. This arc is pretty nuts, and not always in the best of ways, but boy does it introduce some imagination capturing
Yes,
mechanics
it does.
and stick a landing so incredible we are still talking about it all these years later. For me, I look at this more like an epilogue to what was, in my opinion, the greatest stretch in the original run. From the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai all the way to Cell, you have for yourself this brilliant story of how Goku assumed responsibility for Earth, all the while learning that not everyone can be reasoned with. Furthermore, Goku's son gets introduced during the Saiyan arc, and within that epic conclusion to this arc against Cell,
Gohan
getting
just-
thrilling and immensely satisfying conclusion to that
So good.
It does have some really obvious issues that I have to draw attention to for the sake of honesty, though. The fact Toriyama had editors in his ear telling him that the main arc villains weren't good enough is clear.
Yeah, and then I had to change it up. It's like, come on.
19 to 17 and 18, and eventually to Cell,
Yeah.
who cycles through a bunch of different forms before landing on one they all liked. It can be a little distracting, but getting to see the unveiling of Trunks, the return of Goku, and Vegeta, and as I mentioned, that awesome conclusion during the Cell games, it more than makes up for those shortcomings narratively.
Yeah.
It's not God tier for me, but it's
Definitely an S.
top of S tier.
Yeah.
It's a terrific arc. And now we're moving on to the final arc of Z, the Buu arc. What? Now, I bet everyone is waiting for me to tear this arc a new one, but to be honest, I don't hate this
It's
arc.
fun.
I just think it's the weakest of Z's run. I made a video
I agree.
discussing this arc shortcomings before, so if you want to take a look at that
It's
video,
fun.
you can. But truth be told, despite the arc having a lot of weird padding for lack of a better term, it's filled with so many iconic mechanics and
Well,
stuff
Super Saiyan
from the
3 and
series that
Gotenks,
lasted
yeah.
the test of time, it's difficult to hate it too much. Super Saiyan 3 is awesome, and who wouldn't get that satisfying feeling watching Vegeta do what no one else could do effortlessly? It's an empowerment fantasy in the best of ways.
Yeah.
Also, when I was a kid,
Majin Buu.
I totally tried to
Sick.
do that thing Gohan told Videl to do with her chi so that she could fly. Yeah, okay, I was that kid that
My
believed
friend
he could
did
fly,
that
and
as well.
You know what else? I also tried to do the Kamehameha. My childhood was awesome. Jokes aside though, when I was playing sports growing up, and I needed a small boost, Kaioken really did do the trick. And I even tried revisiting that little mental trick a few months ago when I ran my very first marathon in June. And it did give me a boost at mile 20, though I did pay for it later. Totally true to the Kaioken mechanic, what can I say? While the Buu arc itself does suffer
effective,
from a major course correction,
but it has
and a
drawbacks.
lack of direction during many instances, it boasts some of the most emotional and epic clashes.
Mate, Majin Buu, yeah, so
I don't
so
think
sick.
it's as good as all the other ones, but it's definitely not the worst from the original series.
A.
I'll give this one an A.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of the original series and to the end of me being upbeat and happy.
Oh no.
It's time to dive
GT.
into the misery as we enter the post-OG series material with 1996's Dragon Ball GT. The GT stands for good television. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Grand Tour,
doesn't.
isn't it?
It stands for garbage TV. I lied. Black Star Dragon Ball Arc. F tier. Please refer to my review I made a few years ago. My opinion hasn't really changed. Only sadness and
So
hatred
bad.
remains. And look, I think, or at least I hope, that a lot of you out there at this point can appreciate that on some level, perhaps differently from you, I adore this story. I love Dragon Ball. I love how it's made me feel throughout my life.
I was so
And
desperate for it to be
a
good
minute
when I was
ago,
watching it back in the
admitted
day,
to channeling the
because I
power
just
of
love Z so
Kaioken
much.
in the middle of a distance race when I was 30 years old. But I think it's because this story means
Vegeta's
so much to
moustache.
me that when I see it go so far away from what I loved about it, I can't help but react in a, let's say, a
Throw it out
displeased
the
manner
window.
concerning what I've just seen. Enter the Black Star Dragon Ball arc. Many of you, if you're from America, might not have even seen this arc because it was cut and all of you guys basically got the start from the Baby arc instead.
Oh.
A much better arc.
That is a
than
better
this.
arc.
I wrote a comprehensive review of my first time watching this series in completion, and this arc in particular was worse than I remembered. Instead of building off of the material Dragon Ball had left us with in the original series, it violently changed the tone of the narrative without any transitional period, creating scenarios with no through line anyone over the age of 4 could get behind, and more often than not left me wanting and yearning for a story I'd ultimately never receive. Keeping also in mind that much like the original series, I too grew up with this show. So this isn't the case of me being cynical in my older age either. Overall, this arc is just a mess, aimless in its direction, and offered absolutely nothing I could latch onto.
Absolutely abysmal.
Personally. By far the worst arc on this list. It does have a great theme song though,
Yeah,
but
good
that
opening.
alone cannot save it from my wrath here. Time to dust off F tier, truly awful. The Baby arc. Okay,
This is where it
arc
gets better.
wasn't not even close to being awful, really, and honestly, was the arc Goku and the gang should have opened with in this new series.
Definitely.
I'm definitely not the first person to mention this, but there are some truly interesting and exciting ideas and concepts at play here. And I'm not talking about Super Saiyan 4. The idea of creating
Super Saiyan 4 was so cool, though.
hatred and chaos in the likes of the parasitic life form known as Baby offers not just interesting visual possibilities and hijinks with tension built in, but it has something the arc prior didn't. A through line that connects it to the earlier material. Thematically, I love the idea of Baby being created to get revenge
On the
what
Saiyans,
did,
yeah.
only to become what it was designed to destroy. A monster attacking a new
Doing
world.
the exact same
It's
thing.
a simple idea, but a powerful arc's strongest aspect, I think. Furthermore, I love what this arc did for Goten. When I first saw this, I legitimately laughed out loud. It's such a fun idea for the character, given this lady killer persona. However, I do have issues with this arc too. The first half of the story is interesting, watching as Baby infiltrates the gang's group. However, once that point passes and the main set
One by
pieces
one,
fall
taking
into
them all
place,
over until he's got them all
narrative doesn't
controlled.
feel like it has much else to offer and sort of meanders a bit until the fight at the end. The interesting fights that interwove narrative tension are replaced by just plain old fighting that honestly feels more like an obligation than a tangible part of the narrative, and has an ending with a giant golden monkey fight that I genuinely did not enjoy even in the slightest.
Ending was a bit
Maybe it has its problems
annoying.
for me, but I will say that it has more good than bad and is comfortably the
Super
best
Saiyan
arc in Dragon
4.
Ball GT for me. Overall, I think I'll give this one a B for Baby.
Yeah. Oh, mate. Super Android 17.
Super Android 17 arc. One step forward with Baby, and now 20
yeah,
steps
this
back
was
with Super Android 17.
Disappointing.
God, I did not like this arc when I watched it last. And I still don't. This has one of the loosest excuses for a story I've ever seen. The plot is cobbled together by tenuous at best plot elements, and at worst, totally nonsensical choices. The fighting is immeasurably boring, and I couldn't care less about
The way they got rid of Nappa straight away was just like, whoa, and then
it's
it's just...
cool that Piccolo is in this, but even with that, this still manages to suck beyond belief. Its only saving grace is that it's short. So, its biggest upside, for me at least, is that it ends faster than the other arcs. Brilliant. I'm not spending more time on this than I need to. F tier, moving on. The Shadow Dragons arc. The
Alright.
final arc of Dragon Ball GT's one-year run, capping things off in
There's only a
1997
year.
with its Shadow Dragons arc. An arc that, again, everyone might say has an interesting plot concept, and it does.
Yeah.
However, the execution manages to turn that into something much more boring than it otherwise has any right to be. I will, however, say that while it is boring in many aspects, it does have some upsides. The Spirit Bomb Goku charges at the end is awesome and up there with the best Spirit Bombs in the series. It offers some of the most memorable Dragon Ball GT
Yeah,
action,
the
despite
dragon
not
designs are
being
so
much
cool for
translate.
some of them,
And
like...
it has, by far, its greatest achievement, an ending deserving of Dragon Ball. That will always bring a
Yeah, the
cheer
ending
to
was
my
class.
heart. But, and this is a massive badonkadonk, the ending to Dragon Ball GT doesn't really have much to do with the arc itself. In theory, the gang have over-relied on the Dragon Balls all throughout the series, and so if you tack this ending onto the end of any of the other arcs from the past, it works just as well as it does at the end of this one.
Yeah.
It, for that reason, feels disconnected in many ways, and it also feels strange to consider it part of the Shadow Dragons arc for me. Good as it is, it feels like an ending that was conceived of independent of the arc itself, and to be honest, given it has little connective tissue to the main story, I think that very well could
be the case, yeah.
As an arc, as a story, the Shadow Dragons arc is interesting and far less bad than the likes of the Black Star Dragon Balls and Super Android 17, but it's still nowhere near good in terms of storytelling for me personally. With that said, I'm going to slot this Shadow Dragons arc into D tier. And with that, it's time for a time skip. Not in the narrative of the story, though, but in real life. Remember that?
Let's go to
Remember real life?
Super...
Me neither. Time for Dragon Ball Super.
Alright.
Dragon Ball Super, kicking off right after the release of the impressively mediocre Resurrection F film, the powers that be behind Dragon Ball Super's creation
I liked it.
to recap not one, but two films in significantly lower quality with little to no extra content worth exploring. Let's see how I thought that went. The Battle of Gods arc. I don't think a single show has given me more whiplash than this right here. When I heard that Dragon Ball was returning for the very first time since I was a little kid, I legit got chills, I'm sure, like
I was
many
super
do,
excited.
and
So
I need my
super,
body for the
super
awesomeness
excited.
I was anticipating to commence. When I found
Okay.
out that they were recapping a film that came out 2 years prior, I was disappointed, and then I saw this face. Yeah. That became the face of Dragon Ball Super for me. I was destroyed. And look, it's not like there's anything necessarily wrong with this story, but there's nothing really in this arc that's done better than the film itself.
Yeah.
I suppose I liked in theory the notion of extending the fights to match the runtimes of the Z fights, but there was nothing of substance really added. There's an entire episode where Goku and Beerus literally threaten to punch the universe in half, and it's by far one of the dumbest things I think I've ever seen in this show. And I've seen some dumb things in this show. Overall, I'm flirting with the idea of putting this in C tier, but the animation is just so bad
D.
I have to put it into D tier. The Resurrection F arc. Resurrection F, on the other hand, was a film I thought left a lot to be desired. However, what they did add to this, while it's better than what Battle of Gods offered, nothing new. Outside of Goku and Vegeta's training episode, which I still like, this is still a massive step backwards in every conceivable way. managing to make a film I already didn't like even worse by tanking the animation more than I had ever seen in the prior arc, while also being in and of itself a pointless retread. It's worse than Battle of Gods, but I'm still D tier.
Right.
The Universe 6 tournament.
There we go.
I was hyped to see this arc. I was hyped to finally see some new stuff from Dragon Ball that wasn't a retread of the older films. The thing itself is flashy.
Kaioken Blue, mate, so sick.
This might be controversial, but I thought this arc was boring. With that said, however, it is still nowhere near as bad as the prior two arcs and offered us something new, at the very least for us to enjoy. I like some of the fights, or well, I should say I enjoyed part of some of the fights. I like the theme behind Vegeta versus Kaba, although
so cool.
the action felt a bit limited. I liked the Super Saiyan transformation part of Goku versus Frost, and I liked Goku versus Hit.
Oh, Goku versus Hit was awesome.
This was, funnily enough, not the Kaioken, though I did like that a lot. But I found myself having more fun with Goku finding his footing against Hit himself in the early stages of the contest. There's a lot of fights.
Trying to understand how it's working out.
It's the weakest tournament arc in all of Dragon Ball. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's a really middle of the pack type arc, so I think I'm going to put it in C tier.
Okay.
The Jelly Vegeta. Wait, I forgot the other world tournament.
Oh my god, it's amazing.
Okay, like if you're counting that as a tournament arc, that's worse than this one. So if I'm putting this in C tier, I'll put the other world tournament in
B
tier.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't like that tournament.
Oh.
Speaking of
That's so funny.
let's
That's
talk
brilliant.
about this
Come
arc that
on!
was Jelly Vegeta. Truth be told, I know that's not the name of this arc, but
Yeah.
it's the one that literally everyone online uses, and so for the purposes of this video, and fuck it,
There's just no
that's the
point
official
to
name
it
I hereby
all.
decree. The arc itself is super short, feels totally pointless, and feels
Yeah.
like it incorporates the likes of Goten and Trunks more out of pity than any other reason. They're just not using the story. Much the same way I included Garlic Jr. for the lulz, I'm throwing this one down in F tier because I found it so annoying to enjoy.
Yeah.
I will say though that Brian Drummond coming back as the voice of Jelita was a really nice touch in the English dub, so there's that.
Jelita. Here we go.
You know what's funny about Dragon Ball Super? It started off in the worst of ways, but managed to crawl back from the abyss and deliver a better arc each and every time
Yeah.
it released one. Think about it. The first two arcs were AIDS. The Universe 6 arc was okay, if not boring, and now we have Goku Black.
This
Otherwise
was
known as the Future
awesome.
Trunks arc.
I
Not
loved it.
bad. A train wreck of an ending, but otherwise
Yeah, that was
not
the
bad.
only-
Well, that's perhaps being a little too generous. I've gone on the record and stated numerous times that this arc feels like there's a lot of padding, and that more importantly, the logic of the mechanics in this story don't actually make any sense.
Yeah,
when you
but it was
sit
still
down and think about it.
fun.
And the writers knew that, I think. Aside from having the worst ending in the series, I think there's a lot to like about this arc, and it managed to deliver.
Yeah,
one
there
of
was a
the
lot
most
to like about this
iconic
arc.
characters to stem from
The
Super
mystery at the
Superhero
beginning,
Goku
seeing
Black
characters you haven't seen
himself.
for ages,
Furthermore, there are interesting
seeing Goku as a
conversations
bad
about
guy.
topics that are being contended with here between right and wrong, moral superiority, and different ethical dilemmas, many of which are glossed over and not dealt with, but while we're flirting with answering these questions in the middle of the story, it's interesting at the very least. The action in this is easily the best in the series thus
Yeah.
far, and even managed to bring some fans back that otherwise gave up on the show after Animation Gate in 2015. Choosing where to place this is difficult, but at the end of the day, I think it's better than Universe 6 by a wide margin, but nowhere near as good as the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai, so I guess plopping it in E tier is
Yeah, there
acceptable
you go.
for me.
Yeah.
The Universe Survival.
Oof.
For those curious,
This is
by
A.
the way of my comprehensive thoughts concerning this arc as well as all the other super arcs, I made a series a couple of years ago where I go through everything, and my feelings are pretty much the same now as they were back then, so check it out if you're curious. With that said, I probably will sound a lot more positive in those reviews than I do here, where I'm comparing everything from Super to the very best from the original run. And with that out of the way, let's talk about the anime's conclusion with the Universe Survival arc and the Tournament of Power itself. Some people love this, some people hate this arc with a burning hot passion. Personally, I find myself landing close to the middle, maybe.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the middle. I
even
think it was good.
All things being equal, though, I think this arc is much better than Goku Black.
Seeing
However,
Android
I think
17 come
Goku
back
Black
was
is a
so
much better
cool.
antagonist when compared to the likes of Jiren. And before I hear in the comments, oh, Jiren wasn't an antagonist. Yes, he was.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
An antagonist is someone that serves to stand in the way, obstruct, or otherwise antagonize our point of view characters. He isn't a villain, that is true.
Yes.
But that is also fundamentally different to an antagonist.
Yeah, he is
An
antagonizing the main
antagonist,
hero.
which Jiren is supposed to be. that, this arc suffers from a lot of issues, not the least of which being its length. With so many fights involved, this is a slog to get through. I mean, I don't think anyone thought Tien was going to win this tournament, and waiting for him to get eliminated was a slog if ever I did see one. Not to mention a terrible episode and elimination that he ultimately received. With that said, however, when an episode hits, it absolutely annihilated. I think if I made a list of my top 20 favorite Dragon Ball Super episodes, 18 or 19 of them would come straight from this very long arc, with my number one favorite episode being episode 131. Handled by the now household name of Megumi Ishitani, who would later go on to do amazing things with One Piece, episode 131 of Super is breathtaking in all of the best
Frieza and
ways.
Goku teaming up is
Both
just
narratively
absolutely
and
amazing.
visually, thanks to the likes of Yuya Takahashi, contributing one of the coolest moments in the series through Frieza and Goku's team-up.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
And major story beats and the plot being solid, the arc itself has a lot of padding, moves at glacial pace, endurance sucks beyond belief. Vegeta repeats
Damn.
time and again, and overall, there are
Damn.
moments, but equally disappointing ones and flaccid moments to boot. I think due to that, I'll give this one a B tier too, but top of B tier. Better than Goku Black in my opinion.
Okay.
And to be honest, I think if we cut this arc down by maybe 35%, this arc would get a much better ranking in this list. The Moro arc.
Oh.
If I'm being
We're doing
perfectly
manga stuff,
honest,
cool.
I wasn't sure if I should even include the Moro arc from the manga, as the manga itself feels like an entirely different story.
Yeah, it
for a
does.
multitude
It's really
of
weird.
reasons. I mean, the Universe Survival arc is so different from the anime in the manga that I'd put the manga version of the events into D tier if I could. So that will tell you just how different these two versions of the story really are. With that said, however, I do want to include this as it is part of the ongoing Dragon Ball story, and it is an arc. I felt weird about the Moro arc, however, while I was reading it month to month. Because of the way the manga is laid out and the way the action doesn't really do anything, when you're caught waiting for a particular fight to end for 3 months at a time, you tend to lose interest really fast and almost forget certain plot beats. However, for a binging experience with this arc being completely done and being able to read it from start to finish in one go, this arc was a lot of fun, offered Vegeta a nice piece of character development.
Yeah, with the Namekians and that was cool.
Dragon Ball Super, and we got to go back to Namek for a bit, which is always good. Again, like the other parts of this video, I wrote a full review of this arc a couple of years back when it concluded, and to be honest, it holds up really well. It's not as good as the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai, but it is worthy of being an A-tier entry,
Yeah.
I think. At least
Brilliant.
maybe below or around the Buu arc. And that should do it. I'm not going to cover the Granola arc, seeing as
Still
it hasn't
going.
finished yet.
Yeah.
I'm not caught up on it either. I do plan on reviewing it someday soon, though. It's just got
I think I'm a few chapters behind now.
But
Maybe
yeah,
a chapter
that's
behind.
my tier list. Let me know how stupid or wrong you think I am in the comments down below, and don't forget to scream at me on Twitter. If I don't get at least 50 people screaming at me in my mentions, I sometimes worry that Twitter has gone down or broke or something. I love you all.
Well,
One Piece
let's
review
reassure
next
him,
week,
guys.
and then the world. I've been Toy Nut Mark. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week.
We're going to get the One Piece review next week. I'd like the One Piece review next week. That would be nice. No hint at anything there. I really want to see what he thinks of Wano. Although, is Wano over now? Is it over? Is that last one the last thing? Or... But yeah, that was good. I like the tier lists. I like tier lists. I need to check out more Grand Line Review tier lists for One Piece and stuff and things. And yeah, but that was a cool little video. And thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, link is in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month will help support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for that. And special thanks to Snidely Whiplash, who is currently donating $50 a month to the channel, which is very appreciated. Thank you very much for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time.